It signals the end of the Second World War, victory over Japan. We saw the royal family out in force at VE Day as well. Lots of commemorations throughout the UK and the rest of the world. But King Charles wants to sort of not only commemorate the service, the sacrifice, and indeed the loss.
A late summer hush over the grand, sun-bleached lawns of the royal estates. The normal August rhythm, the quiet ritual of the family at their Scottish retreat, the palace shutters partly drawn is interrupted by the weight of history. Flags are adjusted. Veterans' medals are polished. A message is being prepared that the nation will hear. For a monarchy that measures itself in pageantry and protocol, anything that makes the calendar tremble is worth watching. This August, Buckingham Palace has quietly said the family will step back into the public eye to mark a very particular kind of memory, the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, the day that signaled the end of the Second World War in the Pacific. In language that underlines both solemnity and state duty, the palace confirmed there will be commemorations and programming led from the heart of the institution, including an address to the nation by the king. Now, imagine the cameras. Imagine a square filled with veterans who still remember ration books and blackout curtains, school children fidgeting with poppies, a military band leaning into a slow march. The monarchy rarely lets these moments go by without a visible presence. They are the moments it was, after all, born to perform. Remembrance, continuity, ceremony. And at the center of this particular commemoration will be King Charles and Queen Camilla, a couple once again placed in the public spotlight to speak for the crown and the country. The palace briefing made it clear who will be fronting the events. But here's the headline that has set the tabloids and the timeline alight. The Prince and Princess of Wales. William and Catherine are not scheduled to take part in the VJ Day public engagements. Their names don't appear on the palace roll of events for the day. And several outlets reporting on the diary confirm there's no confirmation of their attendance. For a couple who have been a constant presence at major national moments in recent years, their absence reads like a blank space on a program, and blank spaces demand explanation. Before we chase conspiracy threads, let's be methodical. The palace's public diary shows a slate of other senior working royals stepping up, dukes and duchesses, princes and princesses, who will attend services and pay their respects in town halls and cathedrals. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester and other members of the extended family have named events and venues where they will appear. The messaging from the palace has been targeted and precise. This is an institutional commemoration with institutional faces. Why does that matter? Because royal appearances are choreography with a purpose. Every name on a list is a shorthand, a message to veterans, a nod to tradition, a symbol of continuity. When someone whose public face is often associated with national service is missing, people notice. They notice online. They notice in the courts of morning talk shows. Within hours of the palace notice, message threads began to fray. Curious takes, theories, and inevitably speculation that ranges from the mundane to the dramatic. Social feeds lit up with the question, where are William and Kate? First, there's timing. August is the royal family's traditional summer window. For many members of the family, it's the only stretch of the year where they can reliably retreat from public life and be with their children and loved ones without the constant choreography of engagements. A refusal, or simply a non-inclusion, on one ceremony does not necessarily mean they are washing their hands of public duty. It can mean that the machine of state has allocated roles in a way that keeps certain senior members in reserve, especially if the monarch intends to take the lead. Second, look at precedent and roles. The monarch's voice carries a constitutional weight that other members do not. When the nation looks for a formal statement on anniversaries of a conflict, it is not unusual for the sovereign to step forward with a nationally broadcast message, a role that signals unity above all. That the king will address the nation, and that other senior working royals will be visibly present. It's tidy, it's predictable, and it's difficult to spin into scandal without stretching the facts. Third, there is family logistics. William and Kate have young children. Public routines that once allowed for every major anniversary to include the Prince and Princess of Wales are now complicated by the very human logistics of parenting, privacy, and the desire for normalcy. Again, not scandalous, just real life inside a gilded enclosure. But keep one eye on the other. Absence in public life often translates into stories in private. A gap on a high-profile day becomes an explanatory headline within hours. Online chat rooms and tabloid columns fill the vacuum with interpretations the couple is taking a back seat, they are on holiday, or worse, they are out of favor. None of these is proven, and none of them should be accepted at face value without a clear official statement. Still, in the court of public opinion, absence breeds narrative. So that's the present. A national commemoration led by the King and Queen, other senior royals confirmed to appear, and William and Kate not scheduled. That's the skeleton. The flesh, the why, the how. The consequence is where things get interesting. In the next section, we'll dig into the patterns this absence may be signaling. We'll examine William and Catherine's recent public calendar and behaviors, how monarchy optics are managed in the modern era, and what this particular blank could mean for the Wales's path as they edge closer to the front line of the monarchy. We'll also parse the palace's likely playbook if public reaction becomes louder than the message planners expected. But before we do a short pause, remember that in royal life, most things are about optics. Who stands next to whom, who is absent, who gives a speech. These are the sentences in a very long, very slow conversation the monarchy has with the country. Today's punctuation, the missing names, might be a comma, or it might be a dash. Either way, it's going to be read as part of a sentence about who leads and who follows in this new era of the British monarchy. Let's be blunt. The public loves a tidy narrative. A royal absence makes for one. But tidy narratives often ignore nuance. If we want to understand the signal being sent, we need to build a short, precise timeline. Earlier in the year, the Prince and Princess of Wales were present at high-profile national remembrances and public events they have toured, they have led, and they have represented. Their return to a pattern of more selective visibility would not be unprecedented. Monarchies evolve in public by design. Schedules are carved with long-term strategy in mind. A ceremonial apex like an address from the king on a major anniversary being fronted by the sovereign makes sense, because the sovereign's voice is, constitutionally and symbolically, the final one. That said, the choice of who else appears is not merely about constitutional roles. It is also about image, messaging, and the palace's appetite for a particular storyline. If you look at the royal diary and the confirmed participants for VJ Day events, a pattern emerges that suggests a planned distribution of labor. The king and queen take center stage. Other senior working royals, often those with long military patronages or veterans connections, fill out the program, and a select group of royals may be deliberately absent to preserve them for other moments. It's a choreography that keeps the monarchy appearing both united and efficient. The palace doesn't need, nor usually desire, everyone on the balcony for every moment. In some ways, fewer faces make the narrative simpler and, from a communications perspective, cleaner. What does that mean for William and Kate? There are several plausible readings, and here's where we must be careful to separate observation from inference. One reading is pragmatic. The Waleses are prioritizing family and private life right now, and the palace schedule reflects that reality. The monarchy is a family business, and families make choices. For William and Kate, the calculus includes children's routines, schooling, and the desire for a relatively normal family existence. That matters. It is not news that royal parents sometimes opt out of public engagements for family reasons. And in modern media ecosystems, that choice can spark commentary that conflates absence with abdication. It shouldn't. It's a simple prioritization. A second reading is generational and strategic. The palace may be deliberately calibrating which members represent the crown at different kinds of events. The immediate aftermath of a crisis or the commemoration of a war. may be a time to amplify the sovereign, leaning on the gravitas of the monarchy's head. At the same time, younger royals who are expected someday to carry the institution forward, like William and Kate, might be reserved for initiatives that build their civic brand in other areas: mental health, community projects, youth work. It's a long game. A third reading one you'll see splashed across op-eds and comment sections is political and skeptical. Absence equals retreat. Retreat equals reduced authority. Reduced authority invites rumors of internal division. This is the most dangerous narrative because it feeds on assumptions and incomplete evidence. There is no publicly available evidence that William and Kate's absence from VJ Day is anything more than a scheduling choice or a private life preference. Until an official line suggests otherwise, the sober analysis is restraint, not drama now. Let's map consequences. What happens if the public reaction grows louder? The palace has a narrow playbook. 3 moves. First, clarity issue a simple statement about the composition of the events and the reasons, if any, for specific absences. Second, redirection put William and Kate back into public sight with a positive, mission-driven engagement that reshapes the narrative. Third, patience let the memory of the commemoration settle and allow the news cycle to move on. Which move they pick depends on the intensity of public interest. So far, the reaction has been curiosity and a little heat on social media. That's manageable. But if the story metastasized into a question about capacity, unity, or health, the palace would likely move faster with coordinated appearances meant to reassure. Historically, the royal household prefers to control optics, not be controlled by them. Let's talk perception. In the modern monarchy, public perception is everything, not because the royals are politicians, but because their legitimacy rests on consent, affection, and a sense of relevance. William and Kate are part of a generational bridge. They inherit a historically powerful platform, but they also inherit a public that expects a measure of authenticity and relatability. Absent from one day's commemoration does not strip them of that. However, patterns of absence could, if repeated, nudge the public's mental calculus. 2 absentances on back-to-back major events would be noticed. One absence, contextualized and explained, is easily absorbed. Let's also be clear about the historical frame. VJ Day is not simply another engagement. It is an anniversary tied to enormous sacrifice and a very particular kind of national emotion. For veterans and their families, it is a day that deserves specific faces, often those who hold relevant patronages or military roles. The palace's choice to have the king speak is not a slight to anyone else. It is a recognition of constitutional and ceremonial weight. Context matters immensely in reading these moves. So what should viewers take from all of this? Here are the practical takeaways, short, clear, and usable for a YouTube audience ready for analysis, without hysteria. 1. Fact. First, the royal household confirmed a slate of VJ Day events and an address by the king. William and Kate are not on the public schedule for those events. 2. Absence collapse. One day's non-attendance is not a sign of institutional failure. It's a scheduling choice that has precedent and logic. 3. Watch for response. If the palace feels public sentiment needs managing, William and Kate will likely be placed in an engagement that reframes the narrative, expect a family or mission-driven appearance within days if the story grows. Prediction, clearly labeled. 4. For commentators, don't let speculation become the story. Demand official clarity before concluding internal drama. Finally, and this is as much a plea as a critique, remember that royal lives are a balance between public duty and private life. The most charitable and often most accurate explanation for many absences is one of personal prioritization. That doesn't make the story less interesting. It makes it more human. We'll be tracking the palace diary over the coming days. Who appears where, which statements are issued and how the Wales's calendar shapes the narrative. If you want a deep dive on the Palace playbook, how communications teams craft a day's messaging, how appearances are choreographed, and what a single absence can cost or save, I'll put together a follow-up that breaks down the comms strategy with clips, timelines, and a plain English explainer of what the palace actually does behind the scenes. Until then, keep your eyes on the diary, your skepticism for wild rumors, and your compassion for people who both represent an institution and try to live lives within it. If this video made you curious, hit subscribe. We'll keep a running tracker and bring you the verified updates as the story unfolds. Quick recap of sources. Palace announcements and reporting confirmed the King's address and the planned VJ Day commemorations. Official royal engagements list other senior royals attending. Contemporary outlets reported that the Prince and Princess of Wales were not scheduled to appear, and early public reaction landed on social media and tabloid commentary. Thanks for watching, and remember to tell us in the comments. Do you think absence from one day means anything bigger for William and Kate? Or is this just a quiet human choice in a very loud public life?